Hi everyone, today we're talking about optimizing work and saving time, particularly for software projects, but it could also be any kind of work, I suppose. And if you're new to this channel, then hi, I'm Almas. I'm a computing department lead at the University of Brighton. And today I'm going to go through these 5 things that you should be able to see in the top left corner. And we're going to try and kind of optimize various bits of work. So number 1 is identify tasks. This relates to identifying just literally what you need to do. And it could be something like a software project lifecycle, which could be, write code or design code, write code, test, package, deploy, and all sorts of things. Or it could be something completely different, such as write an email, or depending on what it is that you do, it is helpful to know at least what the core tasks for your job description are, so that you can go from there and see if there is anything that you can potentially automate as part of tip number 2. So once you've got this list of things that you need to do as part of your job, you probably want to identify the bits that can be automated. So the word practically here is, well, the emphasis is on it, because you don't want to automate literally every single task. Certain tasks you don't do that often, and if you're trying to automate those, you may find that you're going to spend more time automating these tasks rather than actually doing them manually. So to give you some concrete examples, here's the list of things I need to do in order to release the FXGL game engine. And there is a shell script, which is item 1, that contains release FXGL script for doing all the automated things. That includes producing, or rather extracting, all commit messages since the last release, converting, or rather grouping them into changelog headlines, then generating the changelog file, formatting it correctly so that it's MD formatted, and can be directly just copy pasted into a release kind of web page on GitHub. Then we need to compile FXGL, we need to run some tests, we need to also package into individual jars so that they could be sent to Maven Central. And then actually deploy to Maven Central, and finally produce an Uber jar file for people who use Uber jar files. And then all of this needs to be nicely placed into a directory, which I can just open and then copy all of this stuff to GitHub to create a release. Now, potentially all of this could be automated. So if you think about having a GitHub action on the release branch, so whenever I merge something new, it could take all of this stuff, do it automatically. But because all of these things, apart from the changelog generation and the shell script, which is automated, everything else that you can see on the screen takes about 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes per 3-4 months. So it's a reasonable trade-off. I don't need, I am generally busy, but I'm not that busy to want to save 10 minutes over 3 months. And if something goes wrong on the CI server, and this kind of build generation fails, or something is not deployable, then it will actually take a lot longer to analyze all of this. Because even when I say it takes 10 minutes, it doesn't actually take me 10 minutes, it takes my PC 10 minutes. So what I can do is just run a little script, go away for 10 minutes, do something else, and then come back, and all of this is done. If something breaks, then I can easily diagnose and fix it there and then, really, without worrying too much about the CI server debug logs and stuff like that. If you've done any kind of debugging on the CI servers, then you know how complex that could be, or rather how time-consuming that could be. So going back to item 2, yeah, so automate as much as practically possible. You don't want to be automating everything, is the key message there. I can give you another example. During my PhD, I wrote a thesis, which is like a book with several chapters. And these are individual text files, plain text files, which then get converted to a PDF at the end that I can just publish as a book or as a web page. When I was writing, obviously I needed to have some kind of feedback from the PDF file so I could see what text looks like. For that, it is sensible to automate this because I need that output about 20, 30 times a day. So if I can save time on that output, that's good. There was also another use case for generating PDF, which is for publishing it as a hard copy. Now for that, I need a different configuration. So I would need to automate yet another, write yet another script or something along those lines, because what I get output as a kind of on a daily basis, internal output, that doesn't work for the publishing version because it requires certain styles, certain layout changes, and so on. But I never automated it because I only needed to run that manual kind of generation process once in the 3-4 years that I was writing that book, which meant really saving about 30 minutes over 4 years is not a great trade-off. Plus, to write that script would have taken me quite a bit of time anyway. So it should give you an idea of what things to automate and what things to leave as is. Generally, I kind of follow the so-called 3 times rule. If you're doing something once or twice, it's probably fine to do it manually. It depends on the trade-off. If you're doing 3 or more times, then chances are automating it will benefit you. Item number 3 is batching tasks of the same type. So suppose you're writing an email. If you're writing a second email, it's much easier because you have the email application open, you have the contacts directory, and so on. And similarly, if you're already writing code, and you've finished one task that is related to writing code, it's much easier to pick up the second task, which is of writing code nature, because you already have your IDE open, you have your environment ready. And it's just kind of a very general tip on if you can batch tasks, then it might help. You can do all emails in the morning, or you can do all emails in the evening, or you can do both, but don't keep switching between contexts because that could potentially be more time consuming. Although distractions are sometimes helpful, so you don't want to be writing code for prolonged periods of time because you will lose focus anyway. You know, it's very difficult to concentrate for even an hour. And then imagine concentrating for 2 or 3 hours in one session. So you want to do quite a lot of focused work on, say, designing the API, because that's where most of the thinking really goes. It's not the implementation part, which is just fill in the blanks, but it's more of a designing, software design, architecture, that kind of stuff. Which is partially why I mostly write code in the tutorials. So you don't necessarily see me focusing on the API of it, because architecture and all of that I had already prepared for the video. So in the video, I just do the easy bit, which is write code. So going back to batching tasks, if you can, do that, and small distractions are fine to make sure that you can get a fresher pair of eyes, I suppose, on the task. But yeah, generally try to avoid working for a long period of time, because that is usually not good. Plus your quality drops significantly. Consider bottlenecks is number 4. So you've done your identification of tasks, you've done your automating, and you've grouped things of the same type. What else can you do? Well, you can start considering the tasks that stop you from getting that maximum efficiency when it comes to producing results, whatever that means, within your context. It could be, if you're working on a software project, it could be that you're waiting for somebody else to actually implement the database connection so you can do some queries. Or if it's a game project, maybe you're waiting for the art team to produce some assets so you can then start importing the assets into the game. It could be lots of things. They're not necessarily related to people. There could be some kind of resource-related aspects, like if your internet is slow, to download stuff. So you're effectively just waiting, therefore wasting potentially valuable time. Obviously, if you can do something like start a task and then kind of runs in the background, you can do something else. So basically parallel computing. If you can do parallel computing, then do that. And that's the whole point, just consider, because it's not always that we're able to actually do something with those bottlenecks. But once you've considered them, you at least know what they are and kind of can possibly mitigate them one way or another. And the final thing is delegate tasks appropriately within a team. So if you're leading a team, then it is likely that you'll be responsible for delegating the tasks, and make sure that the person or the sub-team who are working on feature 1 are also working on feature 2, which relates to the first feature or of the same type or something. You don't want your team also switching contexts and tasks constantly. So you don't want your front-end team to also work on the back-end and vice versa. If you're able and can afford to split up the work in a way that maximizes efficiency, then that could save you quite a bit of time, or not you necessarily, but generally as a team. And I think that covers most of the things that I want to talk about. There are minor things that can also save you time, but these could be very context specific, whereas these 5 I thought are generalizable, which is why I picked them. On that note, if you have any more tips, feel free to include them in the video description, and don't forget to vote on the future videos. And thanks for watching. Bye bye now.